Marcus Holloway pressed the barrel of his .45 against his temple, his finger trembling on the trigger as the black sedan pulled into his driveway for the third time that week. The metal felt cold against his skin, but not as cold as the memories that had been eating him alive for 47 years. Through the blinds of his modest Sacramento home, he watched two men in dark suits step out of the vehicle, their movements deliberate and practiced. They weren't here to sell insurance. Not today, he whispered, lowering the gun. Not until. Everyone knows. Marcus had been running from Project Lantern since 1975, but the project had never stopped running after him. What started as a classified military operation in the jungles of Vietnam had become a decades-long cover-up that reached into the highest levels of government. And now, at 72, Marcus was the last man alive who could expose it all. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know you have the files." Last chance. Marcus deleted the message and walked to his basement, where he'd spent the last 3 months digitizing everything: photographs, documents, audio recordings, medical reports. Evidence of what the U.S. military had done to prisoners. Of war to their own soldiers, and to anyone who tried to speak up afterward. The doorbell rang. Marcus ignored it, opening the hidden panel behind his water heater. Inside sat a fireproof safe containing 47 years of secrets. He pulled out a manila envelope marked Project Lantern Final Insurance and set it on his workbench. The doorbell rang again. "Mr. Holloway?" A voice called through the door. "We're with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We'd like to speak with you about your disability claim." Marcus almost laughed. The VA had been denying his PTSD claims for decades, insisting there was no record of his service in the locations he claimed to have been. Of course there wasn't. Project Lantern had been scrubbed from official records before he and his unit had even returned stateside. He opened the envelope and pulled out a USB drive, then sat down at his computer. The upload would take 20 minutes. 20 minutes to expose the truth about what happened in that jungle compound outside Da Nang, where Army doctors had turned prisoners into human test subjects for experimental psychotropic drugs. The knocking grew more insistent. Marcus began typing. "My name is Marcus Holloway, Sergeant First Class, 5th Special Forces Group. What I'm about to tell you will horrify you, but it's the truth. In 1974, I was assigned to a classified operation called Project Lantern ... Before we continue, comment below which city you're from. 48 years earlier, Vietnam. 1974. The screaming started at 03:00 hours. Sergeant Marcus Holloway jolted. Awake in his cot, the sound cutting through the humid night air like a blade. It was coming from the compound, a converted prison facility, 20 clicks outside Da Nang that officially didn't exist. "Jesus Christ," muttered Corporal Danny Reeves from the next bunk. "They're at it again." Marcus pulled on his boots and grabbed his rifle. Outside, the compound was bathed in sickly yellow light from the security floods. The screaming continued, a human voice pushed beyond its limits, begging for death in Vietnamese. "Holloway." Staff Sergeant Coleman emerged from the CIA command bunker, his face grim. "You and Reeves, get to the medical wing, now." The medical wing was a euphemism. Everyone knew what happened there, but nobody talked about it. Dr. Elizabeth Kane, a psychiatrist who'd arrived from Fort Detrick 6 months ago, had been conducting enhanced interrogation techniques on captured Viet Cong fighters. The Army called it intelligence gathering. The soldiers called it something else. Marcus and Reeves found Dr. Kane in the observation room, watching through a one-way mirror as 2 medics restrained a North Vietnamese prisoner who couldn't have been older than 19. The kid's eyes were rolled back, his body convulsing as foam poured from his mouth. "What did you give him?" Marcus asked. Dr. Kane didn't look away from the window. BZ compound, enhanced with synthetic mescaline. We're testing the limits of psychological breakdown. He's dying. He's providing valuable data for national security. The prisoner's convulsions stopped. His body went limp. Subject 47 expired at 0317 hours. Dr. Kane spoke into a tape recorder. Cause of death: cardiac arrest following administration of compound X7. Recommend reducing dosage for future trials. Marcus felt sick. Future trials? Dr. Kane finally turned to face him. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 35, with cold blue eyes and prematurely gray hair. Sergeant Holloway, you're being reassigned. Effective immediately, you'll be part of my security detail. Ma'am, I didn't volunteer for... None of us volunteered for this war, Sergeant. But we have our orders. Over the next 3 months, Marcus watched Dr. Kane and her team systematically torture dozens of prisoners with experimental drugs. They called it Project Lantern, a reference to the way the compounds made subjects' minds illuminate under interrogation. The reality was far darker. The drugs didn't just break down psychological barriers. They shattered human consciousness entirely. Prisoners who survived the initial doses were left as hollow shells, their personalities erased, their memories scrambled. Some became catatonic. Others became violent, attacking guards and other prisoners with inhuman strength before collapsing from exhaustion. But the worst part wasn't what they did to the enemy. It was what they did to their own soldiers. Marcus discovered this when he found Corporal Reeves in the supply closet, his wrists slashed and a confession scrawled in blood on the wall. They're testing it on us too. The coffee, the water. We're all subjects. Dr. Kane appeared behind Marcus as he stared at his friend's body. Corporal Reeves was exhibiting signs of paranoid psychosis. Unfortunately, we couldn't save him. Paranoid psychosis or withdrawal. From whatever you've been slipping us. Her smile was cold. You're being transferred back to the States, Sergeant. Your service here is complete. Marcus was on a transport plane to California within 12 hours. He never saw Dr. Kane again, but he never forgot her face, or the files he'd stolen from her office the night before his departure. Present day, Sacramento. Miss the ending. Watch the story till the end. Yulf upload hit 67% as the front door exploded inward. Marcus didn't flinch. He'd been expecting this moment for decades. 2 men in tactical gear swept into his basement, assault rifles trained on his chest. Step away from the computer, Mr. Holloway. Marcus kept typing. You're too late. The files are already uploading to 17 different news outlets, plus WikiLeaks. The world's going to know what Project Lantern really was. No, Mr. Holloway, it's not. The voice came from the stairs. Marcus looked up to see a woman in her 70s, her hair now completely white, but her cold blue eyes unchanged. Dr. Elizabeth. Kane descended into the basement like a ghost from his past. Hello, Marcus. You look well for someone who's been dead for 2 years. Marcus's blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Dr. Kane pulled out a tablet and showed him a newspaper clipping. The headline read, Local Veteran Dies in House Fire. Below it was a photo of Marcus's house, or what appeared to be his house reduced to smoldering ruins. We've been planning this for quite some time, she said. Marcus Holloway, age 72, died in an accidental house fire on March 15th, 2023. The body was too badly burned for identification, but dental records confirmed it was you. There was even a touching obituary in the Sacramento Bee. That's impossible. I'm standing right here. Are you? Or are you just another test subject who's been living in a carefully constructed reality for the past 2 years? The room began to spin. Marcus grabbed the edge of his workbench for support. You're lying. The coffee you've been drinking every morning, the water from your tap, even the air freshener in your car. We've been dosing you with a refined version of the compounds. From Project Lantern. A compound that creates false memories, false perceptions, false realities. Marcus looked at his computer screen. The upload bar was frozen at 67%. The files he thought he'd been collecting for months, were they real? Or any of his memories? Real? The men following you, the threatening phone calls, the paranoia, all side effects of the treatment. You've been living in a controlled hallucination designed to make you believe you are still fighting us. No. Marcus reached for his gun, but his hand passed through it like smoke. No, this isn't real. What's real, Marcus? You tell me? Are you a 72-year-old veteran exposing government secrets? Or are you a 24-year-old soldier who never left that compound in Vietnam? The basement began to dissolve around him. The walls became jungle foliage. The fluorescent lights became torch flames. The computer became a wooden desk covered in Dr. Kane's medical notes. Subject 78 is showing remarkable resistance to the reality alteration compounds. Dr. Kane spoke into a tape recorder. After 47 years of treatment, he still believes he's living in the future. Recommend continuing the experiment. Marcus tried to scream, but no sound came out. He was strapped to a metal table in a room that smelled of antiseptic and death. Through a window, he could see the Vietnamese jungle where he'd been imprisoned since 1974. The beauty of Project Lantern, Dr. Kane continued, is that we can make subjects live entire lifetimes in their minds, while their bodies remain here for testing. Marcus here has lived through marriage, children, divorce, careers, retirement, all. In his head, while we've been studying the long-term effects of psychotropic manipulation. She leaned over him, her face exactly as it had been 50 years ago. You've been my greatest success, Marcus. 47 years of false memories, false hope, false resistance. You've given us invaluable data on the limits of human consciousness. Marcus felt his mind fragmenting. Which memories were real? Had he ever left Vietnam? Did he have a son? A house? A life? Through the dissolving haze of his false reality, fragments of truth began to surface like debris from a sunken ship. He remembered. Now the real memories, buried beneath layers of chemical manipulation. The first injection in 1974, Dr. Kane's cold smile as she explained how they would use him to perfect their mind control techniques. The years of being a living laboratory, his consciousness trapped in elaborate scenarios, while his body remained imprisoned. You want to know the beautiful irony, Marcus? Dr. Kane set down the syringe and pulled up a chair. Every memory you have of fighting us, of collecting evidence, of being a whistleblower, we programmed those too. We needed to test whether our subjects could maintain resistance narratives even under complete psychological control. You've been our star performer. She gestured to what he'd thought was his computer, now revealing itself as a monitoring device covered in electrodes and wires. Your brain waves spike beautifully when you think you're exposing us. The neural pathways for rebellion, for moral outrage, for heroism, we've mapped them all through you. Marcus tried to speak, but his vocal cords felt paralyzed. Dr. Kane continued, consulting a thick file that materialized from nowhere. Simulation 847. Marcus Holloway, suburban retiree and veteran activist. Duration, 18 months. Subject exhibited persistent attempts to document his experiences, despite no access to actual evidence. Fascinating how the human mind will create elaborate conspiracies to maintain psychological coherence. She flipped through pages of what looked like his entire fabricated life. Simulation 1204. Marcus Holloway, divorced mechanic with PTSD. He spent that entire scenario trying to contact other survivors of Project Lantern. Of course, there were no other survivors. We've been very thorough. The room was changing again. revealing its true nature. Medical equipment hummed in the corners. 4 drips snaked down from the ceiling. Through reinforced windows, Marcus could see other rooms, other subjects strapped to tables, their minds lost in whatever realities Dr. Kane had constructed for them. "Do you see him there?" Dr. Kane pointed to an adjacent room where a man about Marcus's age lay unconscious, electrodes attached to his skull. "That's Thomas Chun, captured in 1973. He thinks he's a successful businessman in San Francisco, running a tech startup. He's been running that same company for 30 years now, experiencing every triumph and failure we program into him." She moved to another window. "And her Maria Santos, Army nurse, who stumbled onto our operation in 75. In her mind, she's been living peacefully in Arizona, raising grandchildren who don't exist. She experiences every Christmas, every birthday, every family gathering in perfect detail." The true scope of Project Lantern was becoming clear. This wasn't just about testing drugs. It was about creating a new kind of prison, one where the inmates never even knew they were captive. They lived full, complete lives in their heads, while their bodies provided decades of research data. But you, Marcus, you were special. Your mind kept generating resistance scenarios. No matter how pleasant we made your simulated lives, part of you always remembered something was wrong. You became our greatest challenge and our greatest asset. Dr. Kane leaned closer, her eyes gleaming with scientific fascination. "We've used your neural patterns to improve our techniques. Thanks to you, we can now create subjects who are completely compliant, who never question their reality. You helped us perfect the ultimate weapon against the human spirit." Marcus felt a tear roll down his cheek, the first real physical sensation he'd experienced in what felt like decades. But even that might be false. Another simulation designed to make him feel human. "The beautiful part," Dr. Kane whispered, "is that even now, even knowing the truth, part of you still believes you can fight back. That's the human spirit, persistent, naive, utterly controllable once you understand its patterns." She picked up the syringe again. "This next simulation will be different. We're going to let you succeed. You'll expose Project Lantern, become a hero, save the world. You'll live in that reality for the next decade, feeling triumphant and vindicated. And all the while, we'll be studying how the brain processes victory and moral satisfaction." "But all experiments must end," Dr. Kane said, preparing the injection. "Don't worry, Marcus. In this next reality, you'll be a successful author living in New York. You'll write best-selling novels about the war. You'll never know that you're still here, still my patient, still helping us perfect the ultimate weapon, the ability to control human memory itself." The needle slid into his arm. Marcus felt his consciousness slipping away, his memories being rewritten once again. But in his final moment of clarity, he managed to whisper the only truth he had left. "My name is Marcus Holloway. I was a soldier, and I never made it home." CNN breaking news. Classified Vietnam War documents leaked online. Washington. A massive data dump of classified military documents has been released online, revealing details about a previously unknown operation called Project Lantern. The documents appear to show evidence of illegal human experimentation on both prisoners of war and U.S. servicemen between 1974 and 1975. The source of the leak remains unknown, but investigators have traced the files to a computer registered to Marcus Holloway, a Sacramento veteran who died in a house fire 2 years ago. The FBI is investigating how a dead man could have uploaded classified documents. Dr. Elizabeth Kane, 89, former Army psychiatrist and the alleged architect of Project Lantern, was found dead in her assisted living facility this morning. The cause of death is being investigated as a possible suicide. In a related development, the son of Marcus Holloway, David Holloway, 43, has come forward claiming his father is still alive and has been held by the government for nearly 50 years. David Holloway presented investigators with a USB drive he claims was mailed to him by his father, containing video evidence of ongoing human experimentation. The Pentagon has declined to comment on the allegations, citing national security concerns. This story is developing. The truth was simpler and more horrifying than any conspiracy theory. Marcus Holloway had never escaped Project Lantern. For 47 years, he'd been trapped in a facility that officially didn't exist, his mind manipulated by drugs that made him believe he was living a normal life. Every memory of freedom, every moment of happiness, every relationship, he thought, he'd had all carefully constructed illusions designed to study the limits of human consciousness. But even in his drugged state, some part of him had fought back, planting evidence that would eventually expose the truth. Dr. Kane's perfect experiment had become her downfall, as the subject she'd tormented for decades finally found a way to reach the outside world and reveal the horrors of Project Lantern to the world.